He almost ignored it. That would have been his biggest mistake. For 11 days, Atlas had been doing something that made no sense. Every evening around 7 o'clock, right after Seth finished his bath and before the first feeding of the night, the Bernese Mountain Dog would position himself outside the nursery door and refuse to move until morning. Not barking, not whining, just there. 112 pounds of black, white, and rust-colored dog, planted like furniture in the hallway, staring at the nursery door with an attention that had no sleeping in it. Daniel Marsh was an architect. He built things carefully. He thought about systems. He had designed 3 homes with his firm in the past year. He understood how structures worked and what happened when they failed. He did not know what to make of Atlas sitting outside his son's door every night for 11 days. His wife, Priya, was a pediatric speech therapist. She understood developmental behavior in children. She understood communication. She had no clinical framework for what Atlas was doing. Seth was 8 weeks old. He was pink and loud and healthy by every visible measure. He ate well, he slept poorly, the way 8-week-olds sleep. He had no fever, no rash, no unusual color, no cry that sounded different from an ordinary hungry cry. He was, by every assessment Priya knew how to make, a perfectly normal 8-week-old infant, except that Atlas would not leave the hallway outside his room the first night. Daniel assumed the dog was adjusting. New baby, new smells, new schedule. The second night, he assumed the same. By the 5th night, he had started leaving Atlas in the bedroom with them and closing the hallway door. Atlas scratched at it continuously. Until 4 a.m, they gave up and let him out. He went directly to the nursery door and sat down. Daniel mentioned it to his father over the phone that week. His father had grown up with working dogs on a farm in Vermont. He listened to the description and said, "Without drama, where's your furnace?" The furnace was in the basement directly below the nursery. Daniel had the furnace serviced the following spring. They had moved into the house in August. The service had not been done since then. He called the HVAC company the next morning. They had an opening in 4 days. He booked it. If you stay for stories about what animals sense, before we do, you're in the right place. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. On the 3rd night before the service appointment, Atlas did something new. Instead of sitting outside the nursery door, he began scratching at it, continuously. The same rhythmic, deliberate scratch that woke Daniel at 2:17 a.m. He lay still for 30 seconds, trying to determine whether the dog needed to go outside. Atlas did not stop. Daniel got up. He opened the nursery door. Atlas went inside, crossed to the crib, stood with his chin over the rail, and pressed his nose to Seth's face. Seth was asleep. He was not in distress. His color looked normal in the dim nightlight, but his breathing was slightly shallow. Daniel stood in the nursery doorway for 4 seconds holding that observation. He had no medical training. He did not know what shallow meant in the context of an infant's breathing rate. He picked Seth up. Seth was warm, not hot, warm. He woke up and cried immediately, and Daniel held him and breathed. He walked Seth to the bedroom. He woke Priya. He said, "Something feels wrong." "I don't know what it is." She looked at Seth. She agreed. They called the pediatric nurse line. The nurse asked 3 questions and said, "Take him to the ER." "I don't want to tell you it's nothing over the phone." The attending physician at St. Luke's Children's Emergency Department that night was Dr. Fabian Rocha. He examined Seth, reviewed his oxygen saturation, and ordered a blood panel. The carboxyhemoglobin level came back at 7.8%. Normal for a non-exposed infant is less than 1.5%. At 7.8%, an infant has been breathing elevated carbon monoxide, not acutely, chronically. Small amounts, over days, building slowly. No detector in the house had alarmed. The CO detector in the hallway had a threshold of 70 parts per million. Leak from the cracked heat exchanger in the furnace directly below had been producing approximately 22 parts per million, enough to accumulate in the nursery over 11 days, enough to affect an 8-week-old infant, whose metabolism runs faster, whose breathing rate is higher, and whose blood has a higher affinity for CO than in adults. Not enough to trigger any alarm in the house, Dr. Rocha told them. 8-week-old infants have 3 times the CO absorption rate of adults. At this level, chronic exposure over 11 days in a confined sleeping environment creates cumulative neurological risk. You would not have known without testing. Your son's oxygen therapy tonight and removal from the exposure will resolve this. Then he said the sentence that Daniel has repeated to every person he has told this story to. He said, "Something brought you in tonight. Whatever it was, it worked exactly when it needed to." Has your dog ever done something that made no sense until it was the only thing that made sense? Tell us in the comments. These stories deserve to be heard. The HVAC technician who came the following morning found a hairline fracture in the furnace heat exchanger, a common failure point in units over 12 years old, producing exactly the emission profile the blood work described. He condemned the furnace on the spot. A new unit was installed in 48 hours. Atlas never sat outside the nursery door again. Dr. Ades Okonkwo, a veterinary toxicologist whose research focuses on canine detection of environmental chemical hazards, reviewed the case at Daniel's request. Her explanation was direct. Carbon monoxide at subalarm concentrations produces detectable changes in the air chemistry of a closed room. These include trace combustion byproducts, altered oxygen ratios, and changes in the CO2 signature of an enclosed space. A dog's olfactory system, which processes smell at parts per trillion, registers these changes as meaningful anomalies, the way a smoke detector registers smoke, but at a threshold thousands of times more sensitive. Atlas was not sitting outside the nursery out of attachment behavior or anxiety. He was stationed there because the air in that room was wrong, and he could not make it stop being wrong. Every guardian deserves to be seen, even the ones who never ask for anything in return. If stories like this matter to you, subscribe so you never miss the next one. Seth is 14 months old now. He is healthy. His pediatric follow-up at 3 months, 6 months, and 12 months showed no residual neurological effects from the exposure. Daniel replaced every CO detector in the house, with units that alarm at 10 parts per million. Atlas sleeps in the nursery now. Not outside it, inside. His bed is under the window, which is the farthest point from any wall that shares a surface with mechanical systems. Daniel doesn't know if that's intentional. He stopped assuming things about Atlas in November. What he does know is this: 11 nights. The dog sat outside a door for 11 nights, and Daniel almost called it anxiety and booked an appointment with a trainer. He thinks about that sometimes, what it would have meant to ignore it one more day. What did your dog do that you still cannot explain? Drop it in the comments below. Someone needs to hear it.